So the past few days have been pretty emotional and introspective and interesting and bonding and all these things. You know, after the funeral, the day after the funeral was the beginning of the highest holiday in Judaism. And while I'm not particularly religious, I do honor that holiday, Yom Kippur. I think it's an important holiday and time for introspection. And the greatest part was we're sitting around having lots of conversations, and again, talking about connecting through family and watching dynamics of people talking, and it reminded me, going back to the books that I was telling you about, one of them about a book about community, and community can be two people. And we just start to realize that leadership can come from anywhere, and as it relates to conversation and how that builds connection and community, you're a leader, I'm a leader, anybody could be a leader, and leaders should never interrupt teammates, colleagues during conversations, because it'll essentially set and this did not happen actually, it reminded me of some of the client meetings I've had over the years, and how that was one of the biggest faux pas of leadership, whether it was impatience or just lacking the listening skill or any other number of things. It doesn't bode well, right? It sets a bad precedent, interrupting. It sets an interrupting norm. So leaders, whether you're in a group of one or in a family of 10 or whatever the sort of discussion, everybody should sit around and listen. And if you want to feed back to somebody, feed back to them summarizing what it was they said. And if you don't understand it, admit that you didn't understand it and ask them, would you explain that a little bit more? Because everybody wants to be heard. You want to be heard. I want to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. But if you interrupt and you just can't wait to get on to the next, it really sets a bad precedent. And this is how community is not built. And this is why communities fall apart. Communities big, communities small. We should encourage people to, express frustration, think about it, again, in the terms of this memorial we just came from and all the emotions and the sadness. And actually ours went great. But it just reminded me of so many of the conversations I've had. So you could be the leader of one, whether you're a parent or sitting in a group of people at a social dinner. You can be a group of one and be a leader, but make sure that who's ever at the table, who's ever, euphemistically at the table, has a chance to speak and speak their mind and let them know they've been heard in non-judgmental ways. So this is a really important part, again, of communication. I want to talk, I don't want this video to go on too long. I think I'll wait for tomorrow to talk about conversational buckets. There are practical conversations, there are emotional conversations, there are social conversations. And when you're in groups, and when you're listening to way other people are emoting, you want to understand what sort of conversation they want to be in. Sometimes in an emotional conversation, people just want to know that they've been heard. They don't want advice. They want like a feedback loop. They just want to say that, so you're saying this or you're saying that. And it's these tiny little ways and these tiny little feedback loops that afford conversation and afford connection and build on connection. So again, I'm going to stop this one because the other, the conversational buckets are an interesting topic, and one again that I've learned about and think are so important. And again, it can matter in corporate cultures, family cultures, social cultures, sitting around cultures, but just essentially letting people know they've been heard and feeding back to them with questions or by responding, summarizing is a very powerful tool. Stay safe, everybody.